Dagger Pistol Daredevil. One of the strongest builds for World vs. World roaming, but as is the nature, when something gets nerfed, people just play something else. However, for me, when something gets nerfed, I start playing it again. So this is one of my favorite builds for World vs. World roaming, and with the increase to the black powder initiative cost to 8, it's really hard for you to permanently stealth unless you're using a permanent stealth build, but that's not going to be in this video. If you do want to run permanent stealth builds, then by all means run those, but this just is not that. This is a assassin playstyle with high burst, mobility, and a bit of a trade-off in its playstyle, because you can't expect to be the best 1v1er if you're also going to be an assassin that also has really good, killing potential for its team and the ability to survive when outnumbered. So, that's more of a bruiser playstyle that has become more commonplace with the permanent stealth of Shadow Arts. This is a Deadly Arts build. So, we're going to go over, this isn't a build guide, this is just a commentary showing the decisions that I make on this build. If you do want to understand how the build plays, well, you basically just do your steel backstab combo into the impairing daggers, which I'm using, and then you can follow up with hard seekers until they're dead. It's pretty simplistic, but what is difficult about this build is understanding the timing, understanding how to pull your initiative, because there's more initiative costs, knowing when to use your black powder, and of course knowing the matchups or when an enemy can actually be killed, like when they're out of cooldowns, when they're out of dodges, and obviously that has a lot to do with you understanding how the other classes work. So that can be a little bit difficult, and that's kind of where the main difficulty of Dagger Pistol Daredevil has been for the most part, because it's one of the lower APM builds to play, because it's very timing oriented, very burst oriented, but it is very knowledge oriented as well. So we're going to be going into this situation. I see this Untamed, which is a good target. I miss Steel, so that's another thing. You're playing Deadly Arts on this build, you need to land Steel. It's not like the Shadow Arts build where you can just miss Steel and just go back in stealth and do it again. You're going to need to actually land your Steel, because you get improvisation, you get mug, and you also get vulnerability and a bunch of other stuff from landing Steel. So momentum is highly important for this build, and Steel is your highest momentum skill, so using it properly is really important. You can see there the backstab combo into impairing daggers. I was a little bit slow on the impairing daggers because I'm actually running a celerity sigil, and so whenever I disable an enemy, I will get quickness, and that allows me to do a really fast impairing daggers, but it was on cooldown because I had stolen shorter than 20 seconds earlier, so it was just on off cooldown, and I wasn't able to get the burst fast enough. But yeah, the idea of this build is you want to get the kill really fast on targets, and then we also use the impact strike, which allows you to stomp enemies, which prevents them from getting revived by their allies, because you can get the kill so fast and then get out. Whereas when you need to use your shadow step to stomp them or stealth to stomp them, yeah, it is still pretty safe to do that, but it's just not as fast, and it allows the enemy more counterplay. You want to get the kill because that is your main priority, right? And so getting that impact strike in there to get those quick kills is going to be really nice. Now we get the down here, and another thing is the stolen abilities with improvisation can be really nice. And impact strike to finish off the down body there with a little bit of retargeting, because what it does is it progresses the impact strike of its 3 hits, but you can hit anything with it, even if it's not the target that you want to end up finishing with that 3rd strike, because that 3rd strike will finish off the target. Now here's another situation where I am trying to bait enemies to split up. Whenever they're together like this, there is 0 chance that I can ever get a kill. So I'm just trying to bait them away from each other. And of course, when they're together like this, they are extremely aggressive, extremely confident, because of course they're not going to die when they're together like this. So it's my job to understand, first of all, that enemies have differing amounts of mobility. And so if I run away from 5 people, they'll all run at me, but they'll run at me at different speeds. And so this Harbinger is running faster than everyone else. So I'm going to start targeting them. And I see that they've dodged twice. So I'm going to use my heal skill, steal before the stealth happens so I can get the backstab off. And then you can see I just Heartseeker spam into Impact Strike, get the finisher, and they can't do anything about that. So I've got to kill in a 1vx situation, and I'm ready to leave. I'm already out. So that's the power of the Deadly Arts Daredevil, to be able to get those kills really fast. Very simple process to do that combo, but very complex process to set up the situation where I can do that combo. Now here's another situation where I'm going to show the combo a little bit more cleanly, but just baiting out dodges first using the Impact Strike. I steal into the Black Powder, and then I just spam Heartseeker once they're immobilized by the Impairing Daggers. And there's nothing they can do because they can't dodge while they're immobilized, and I just ensure that my immobilized lands by waiting until their dodges are out. Now here's another situation. This time I'm being attacked by a Chronomancer. They have a power build. I stole to a clone there because I tried to do a quick tab target steal, but they summoned a clone on me as that was happening, so I tab targeted to the clone. You want to land steal. So that's a bad opener by me. I get a nice little Bandit's Defense knockdown, which I am using Bandit's Defense now because the extra stun break is just really nice for allowing you to have a stun break that you can actually use and then be able to do aggressive plays, as you can see with the Shadow Step, to secure kills. Now if I use Shadow Step to get out of that stun earlier, I wouldn't have had that aggressive playmaking potential. So I feel like having a secondary stun break like Blinding Powder or Bandit's Defense is just really nice, because then you can use Shadow Step for making plays. Now here's a 1v1 against a Vindicator. Vindicators are not the worst matchup. It's actually a pretty good matchup, but they are a tanky kind of bruiser build. So I need to use my momentum with the steal very well. And I need to also survive because they can counter pressure pretty hard. So I have my quickness here, so I want to auto attack. Auto attacks are really important because this is how you pool initiative on this build. You can play very aggressive by stealing, but you don't need to spend a lot of initiative to play aggressively if you just use your auto attack while they're immobilized or you have the quickness. So we get the knock up there from the Impact Strike, and I put the Black Powder down, and I just sit in there auto attacking it because I don't need to Heartseeker immediately because it's going to last. And as you can see, once they get out of that Black Powder, I can just Heartseeker out, land the backstab, and then just Heartseeker them until they're dead. And getting the interrupt on that heal was also really important. So saving steal for that high momentum interrupt or gap closer rather than just using it off cooldown is really important. Even though you want to make sure you land steal, you also want to make sure you land it in a moment that can give you that momentum. Now I'm going to drop down here on my mount to engage the Sick'em Soul Beast. I headshot them so that they can't get their stability. I steal into their leap. That's another important thing, is whenever an enemy is doing a leap animation, they can't dodge during that. So it's a really good time for you to steal, because not only do you know you can land your steal, but it's also nice to interrupt their leap animation. I'm going to reset here and go back into a 1v1 with this Condi Axe Daredevil. And I've got some cooldowns because I use them to kill the Ranger, but I'm just trying to bait out. Yeah, I'm just trying to bait out their cooldowns here. Fair play. I mean, he tried to 2v1 me. I'm going to use whatever I can to win. He does have pretty good burst though, and I'm really far behind now because of that. I landed immobilize, and I believe I dodged his steal maybe with the Impact Strike, because that is an evade frame, but I still take so much Condi, and it's just not winnable at this point, because if he hits me once, I've got no cleanse on this build. If I run the Signet of Agility, I could have a better matchup. But once again, if he's running this build that is not really high mobility, he can't chase kills. So I have the advantage because I can choose when I want to die and when I don't want to die, and he can't really choose that because he's forced to stay in fights and he can't chase. So I've got a huge advantage because I can just leave whenever I want, and I can chase him down and kill him if I've ever got the advantage. So right off the bat, this is like a favored matchup, even though his build has a lot of damage and I don't have a lot of Condi cleanse. But I have this ability to, I just reset the fight as usual, and now that he's really low and I've got the second chance and I'm just playing really aggressive, I know what his build is. I've just got such an advantage now because I can choose when to go in, when not to, and kind of like learn the fight before I want to fully invest into it. Now this Signet Tempest, I don't want to fight, so I'm just going to completely leave that. Now here's a situation where I'm trying to go for a kill on a Deadeye to protect my ally there, but they move away. They have cooldown, so we got to back off, just go into stealth again, and I can look for another kill here. I see this warrior is in the back, and I land my backstab into the quickness, impairing daggers, into a shadow shot, and that's enough to get the kill with the shadow step stomp there. So you can see, you can get kills really fast if you perfectly combo them and know the right situations. But that warrior was not really that easy to kill when I fought them earlier on. They put up a pretty good fight, and they did not die that fast. So when they're able to expect that I'm coming, allies don't die really fast. It's usually when they don't expect you and they just eat your full combo that they die like that. So here I am fighting a Sikkim Soul Beast or some kind of longbow ranger. I just call them Sikkim from now on, but they could or could not be running that utility. And the warrior. I know that the ranger is mostly out of cooldown, so I just need to go in one last time. That last time I got nothing out of it except their cooldowns, but now that they're really low, I can do a lot of damage. I almost finished them off, but I don't crit with the impact strike, and so we just have to back off because I've used all my cooldowns. So that first kind of engagement was baiting out their cooldowns without really using mine, and then that second one was following through with my cooldowns to try to get the finishing kill. But we weren't able to get it, so I immediately know that I have to back off because I don't have any more resources to follow through. And that's kind of how the play style of this build works. You want to be pushing in for those kills when you have cooldowns, and then backing out when you know you can't. So we do land our impairing daggers and steel combo, and that gets the warrior pretty low. They use their heal skill and their staff abilities to get a decent amount of healing back, and they land their unblockable F1 on me because the staff 3 gives them unblockable, right? And so I got hit through my bandit's defense there. So they get a lot of sustain off of landing that. And now I have pretty low cooldowns, so this is not a great situation for me. And yeah, I could go for the steal here. I steal into their bull's charge, but that's gonna miss, and so I missed steal at this point. I've got low sustain, so I've got to kind of back off on my aggression because I need to kind of wait or stall time for my next steal when I can get that momentum back. Try not to get pulled by their thing here. I do land a nice Heartseeker, but I steal into their heal skill. Instead of interrupting it, I just heal them. So they're back to full HP. Not great. And I tank another Greatsword F1 there. Not great either. So I'm making some mistakes here, but we're going to be seeing how this all ends up. I landed a nice steal here, so now we've got a decent amount of sustain, but we were so far behind that this momentum doesn't really get us ahead. We're trying to get back into the fight. So we just land our steal to get a little bit of healing, get our cooldowns back. And now our next steal is when we really need to get the damage off. So that last steal was just recovery. He uses his heal, and now we can just back off. Stealth a little bit because we've been pulling our initiative. And now we steal, go for the shadow shot. He has full counter there, and that's another thing when you're fighting Spellbreakers. You know that full counter has an 8-second cooldown, so I wasn't really thinking about that too much. So counting dodges, counting full counter cooldown, and all that would probably give me a lot better time against this warrior, but I was thinking too much about my build and not really about their build, so that's kind of something you need to do, is think about the matchup, not just playing your build, which requires you to practice the build so that you can play it with muscle memory. Land a nice little backstab there though, and a good timing, not a good timing on the steal there, but we still have enough initiative to Heartseeker them and then finish them off with the impact strike. So yeah, matchups, counting dodges, and counting cooldowns is really important. I didn't do it very well in that situation, but once I eventually learned how the fight worked, I stalled with my ability to resustain and use mobility to survive, I eventually learned how the matchup worked, and then I pressured the matchup and got the kill. So even though this is not a great 1v1 build, you can kind of see how you can still force 1v1s in your favor just by stalling the fight out, using superior mobility until you can get that window of a kill opportunity, right? But here's a 1v1 against a Untamed, and this is a more bruiser style Untamed, and bruisers should generally beat thieves unless the thief can just out mobility them like a warrior. So warrior's pretty bad matchup for thief, but ranger's a pretty good matchup against thief. So here we're just playing really aggressively, trying to get the impact strike to CC them, but they're moving around a lot, and I need to cleanse that poison off me so I can use my heal. And this is a dagger Untamed, so I know that their ambush skill will occur shortly after they, so that's the ambush skill where they port. I cannot get hit by that or I will die. Now I stole to try to backstab there, but they stealth, so I stole into nothing. Once again, try not to missteal. But here we've got some cooldowns, we've got a decent amount of health. I can use my black powder to get some stealth and get in range, but we're not in the best positioning. I do land my impairing daggers and I'm going to steal into my knockup, but they have stun breaks, so that was really not a good use of that. They have their barrier, and that's, so in this matchup I need to watch out for their barrier, obviously, because I don't want to just do damage into their barrier, because then I'm just wasting my damage, and as a thief you have very limited damage, so you need to get a lot of value out of it. But we got a nice amount of Heartseeker damage there from the impairing daggers into the Heartseeker spam with quickness, and so we got a lot of damage. We just need to finish them off, but we're low on initiative, so I need to just auto attack here a little bit and then use my cooldowns. We're just pulling initiative right now. I steal into black powder, so once again, when I use black powder on top of them like that, they have to move away, and so once they move away, I can Heartseeker on top of them, finish them, get the kill. So that is kind of how the momentum works. But when you make mistakes and you don't have high momentum, you will lose to these bruiser builds. So this is going to be another 1v1 with the same Untamed build, and I'm going to try to play as aggressively as possible to try to get the kill, because that was my advantage, was to kill them before I would run out of sustain. Now I could still sustain quite a bit, but as you can see there, they have way more trade potential against me, and so if I don't have the momentum to get the kill, then they're going to just out sustain me. They're going to do more damage than me, and I just lose. If I interact with them, I lose. So you have to essentially not interact with the enemy. Only engage with them when you have cooldowns, disengage when you don't have cooldowns. Wait for that steal, trade with them when you have steal, because they cannot attack you when they're dazed, right? And so that's your highest potential damage and lowest potential counter pressure situation when you have steal up. But after that steal has been used, yeah, you do have to back off. Now here's a 1v1 against a sword dagger Daredevil. I open with my black powder, but I know that they probably want to interrupt me, so instead of going for the Heartseeker, I dodge, and I dodge their steal, so we're in a pretty good spot. And I'm just spacing them, because I know that the counter to sword dagger Daredevil is the right spacing, because their sword 3 has a little bit of a clunky movement to it. And so just trying to keep that perfect spacing by running away from them, and then using Shadow Shot to re-engage. I steal into them here with the knockdown of Bandit's defense, keeping that spacing, and at the very end of the Dagger Storm animation there, it's not an evade, so it's 3 seconds of evade, but 4 seconds of animation. So if you're in this matchup, you know at the very end of Dagger Storm you can hit them, and if you're using Dagger Storm, then you need to stow it and then dodge, because you're vulnerable during that last second. So here we're going to do another 1v1 with the Sword Dagger Daredevil, and this is actually a pretty decent matchup. Now Sword Dagger is probably the better build right now, but Dagger Pistol has the advantage in the matchup naturally, so it's a pretty good matchup right now. So we open with the black powder steel there. Once again, they have to move out of the black powder or they just keep getting blinded, right? So I can just auto attack and then I can Heart Seeker when they move away. And we're just trying to stay on top of them. They're using the dodges here. I get Cloak and Dagger, so they have the stealth advantage now. I block and I steal into them when I know that they're playing aggressive. And once again, using that Shadow Step very aggressively because I use my Bandit's Defense as the stun break, and that allows me to make plays and to finish off kills. And that is how I like to play the Dagger Pistol Daredevil. I didn't really cover everything you need to know, obviously, because it's impossible to do that in one video, but there are other videos that are covering the mechanics of Dagger Pistol Daredevil. This is just kind of a sort of newish style of a very old playstyle using the Impact Strike and the Impairing Daggers. But yeah, once again, if you like this content, then like the video, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.